So of course I always like to like do things differently, and I made a bunch of these. Oh. Hey everyone, it's Natalie, also known as Knitty Natty. Welcome to episode 158 of the Love in Stitches podcast. Today is Tuesday, November 15th, and it is a chilly day here in New York City. It has finally gotten properly cold, and what I mean by that is this morning when I took Toaster out, it was 34 degrees and I needed gloves and I needed like my puffier jacket. I finally brought that out. I put it right back away because I don't want to have to wear it too much yet. It's only November, but yeah, the time is here. The good news about that is that it's finally cool enough inside our house. We don't have our heat on yet. It's a little chilly in here, but we kind of like it. I can actually wear sweaters and be comfortable. And I'm also wearing knitted socks with my slippers. I love this yarn. Normally I'm like barefoot all the time because I get really overheated. But today I finally need some hand knit socks, and there is no better feeling than hand knit socks in slippers. For some reason, that is the comfiest way to wear them for me. So I am wearing my Something Cozy. I believe it's by Shayna Billow, but it is a Chelsea Luxe yarn, and I'll have the details down below. But I love this. I always wear it with a t-shirt because it's very short and oversized, and just like the name implies, it's very comfy and cozy to wear. Okay, I have a few things to share in this intro section, so let's get right to it. Okay, so I'm setting the scene here. Behind me, over right there, is Toaster, and just to say how cold it is in here, he is cuddled up underneath a blanket. I just looked at him and he opened his eyes, but he's like falling asleep. It is the most adorable thing ever. And then also I have decorated in here a little bit for Christmas. So I've got like I've changed out the bowls that I have all my stitch markers in. I've got my little felt Christmas tree that I got a long time ago from a yarn store that I think the person who made them got like sweaters from thrift stores and washed them so that they felted and then cut out the circles. So I have no way to tell you where to get these things. These are things that I've collected over the years, and the bowls have like knit patterns on them. I love them so much. I think those were from Target a while ago. But anyway, it's just kind of fun to change things up a little bit in my little corner. So you'll see that in my background now. We've also added some pictures to our bed, so now you're gonna see those in the background, at least for a little while. We're trying to decorate and make things very, very cheery. Okay, so now that the scene is set, so you know all the new things that are happening behind me in the background, I have our giveaway winner from the last episode. So in the last episode, I announced that I hit a new milestone, which is 25,000 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you so, so much. And I am giving away this beautiful skein of Sorella yarn, which is called Autumn in New York. And so in order to enter that giveaway, you had to have watched the last podcast episode and put a comment on that episode. And so I'm announcing the winner here right now. So I asked that you share your weekly win, and so many of you did, and it was so fun getting to read through all of those. There were things that were knitting related to things that were like very serious and life related, and it just everything in between, and it is so cool to read those. So I randomly selected a winner, and our winner, I'm going to try to pull up so I can read their comment. Here we go. Our winner is Heather Tucker. So Heather said, "Congratulations on your sub numbers. My weekly win is that I'm knitting a cable blanket, and quite early on in the current section, I made an error. I decided to leave it and not look at it. However, this preyed on my mind and I eventually ripped back so much knitting. I was so cross with myself, but I kept at it this week and now I'm back to where I was, but with perfect knitting. Thank you for your wonderful videos." So congratulations, Heather. If you will send me an email, natalie@knittynatty.com, we will get it coordinated so I can send you your beautiful skein of yarn. But I just want to comment on Heather's weekly win, because this is something that you've seen me do a lot this year, is go like, I want to change something, but I'm not sure. And then eventually learning that going back to fix it when you feel like fixing it in the moment is going to be the best thing. So Heather, I'm proud of you. You did a great thing. If you had left it, that also wouldn't have been a good choice, but just being, you know, honest with yourself about what you need in your knitting, I think is always the most important thing. You may even see that come up here in just a few projects. All right, with that being said, let's move on to our project section. I have some new things to show you today. Usually I start with the project that I've made the most progress on, but since I don't have any finished objects this week, I'm gonna do the opposite and start with the project that I've made the least progress on, but something that I'm hoping to truly start tomorrow. So this is nothing yet, but this is the yarn for the Diaphanous Raglan by Jessie Made Designs. So here's my yarn. It's all wound and beautiful. It was all wound up last week, ready to start. I'm so excited to start this project. And, ooh, I need to not get these confused. I made a swatch last week that wasn't quite right on gauge. So this weekend, I took some time to make a second swatch. So I actually ended up going up a needle size back to the needle that's called for, which I believe is a size 7. I just left it here in the bucket. And here it is. Nothing crazy or impressive, but you can definitely, or at least I can see in person, that this is definitely a looser gauge. Now, this just dried yesterday, so I actually haven't measured it yet. I mean, I did like a little preliminary before blocking measurement and everything like that, but it wasn't quite right on the gauge either. The thing that I'm having an issue with is getting row gauge on this pattern. I think the row gauge is supposed to be 6 rows per inch. I need to actually look that back up. And I'm much closer on this swatch, the second one where I went to the size 7 needle, the one recommended in the pattern. So I'm probably gonna go with this gauge, but because it's a raglan, I really wanna make sure I'm as close to row gauge as possible, because if I don't have the same or close to raglan row gauge, I won't get the depth that I need in my sweater. Luckily, this is a pretty long raglan, this type of sweater, so I think it will be okay if I'm not perfect, but I do want to see how that's going to affect the overall sizing of the sweater itself. The other thing that I was not so sure about on this sweater is the color of the yarn. So, oh, you know what I did is when I moved everything in my bowls, I pulled my labels down here instead, so they're in my project thing. So this yarn is a Chelsea Luxe yarn, and it came with a mohair and a slub together. Both are called Grace and Pearl, from Grace and Pearl in New Jersey. And so when I did this second swatch, I really tried to push all the slubs like through to the front. I feel like I did a better job, but I don't know. Looking at it now, I think they're pretty much the same. You can definitely tell this is like a tidier gauge. I like this more, but it's really far off as far as the row gauge goes. So I don't know. That one is up in the air, but I'm hoping to make a decision on it and be able to cast it on tomorrow. So the last thing I was debating on with this one is the color, because I'm not 100% sure about wearing a color that is so neutral and not actually white, that is closer to a beige, you know, closer to a skin tone. I'm not sure it's the best color for me. So what I did, this was my friend Amy's suggestion, is to take a picture with the swatch outside. So I actually did an indoor swatch, an indoor photo to see what it would look like on me, like indoor lighting. And then I had Kent take an outdoor photo of me. And I decided that I like it enough to continue forward with the sweater. So it'll be interesting to see, because only the center of the sweater will really be this color, I think, because the mohair, I don't know, it's kind of coming across as lighter than the slub. The mohair will be held alone for the sleeves, whereas it's held together for the body and also the swatches that I did. So it will be a little lighter there on the sleeve. So this is a big like TBD project, because I need to make sure I get a close enough gauge to work it. I need to make sure I'm going to like the color. And that was the thing. It's like, I don't want to start it knowing that I definitely don't like the color. Like, I'm learning to be honest with myself about projects and everything, and make things that I truly want to make and will really love. So I think I asked for this last time, but you know, still, if you have any advice for me on the color, I know, I think like if I was giving somebody else advice on this, I would probably say to them, if you're not sure, then it's probably not right for you. And I hate that because I really want to make this project really badly. And I think that's what's pushing me through to just like make it anyway, is I really want to make it, but I'm definitely not sure. But there's also been things that I've been not sure about that have turned out great. So I don't know. Right now, I don't know, but forward progress on the sweater, and hopefully I have either a sweater cast on or a decision made for next week. The reason that little swatch and sweater didn't get started last week is because I was a busy bee casting on some new projects. It also just doesn't always work for me to start something brand new in the middle of a week, because on the weekend I have a lot more time to like play around with things, think about things, you know, the mental space is there on the weekend. And so instead, during the week, I ended up casting on 2 projects. That wasn't the plan. One was, but the other wasn't. So here is the project that was the plan. These are knitted knockers, and I'll talk about the yarn first, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the knockers. So the yarn that I got is Cascade Ultra Pima in DK. I think this one's called Buff and this one's called Chocolate, if I'm not mistaken. I do have it in the project page, and actually, I keep forgetting. I just need to pull this bowl back out. Pull this out temporarily. I do think I have them here. Cascade 220 Ultra Pima. I got this at Knitty City. If you're in New York, they have a lot of colors. And this one doesn't say. Oh, Buff. This one says Buff. I think that was the neutral, and this one is the brown. Chocolate was the brown. So I am making knitted knockers, which look a little bit like this. It's not stuffed. It will be stuffed with fiber fill, but these are exactly what you're thinking. They are breast prosthetics for, this one is a little harder to see in the light, breast prosthetics for people who have had a mastectomy. So a lot of times breast cancer patients, or for other reasons, you know, somebody needs a mastectomy, and then there's a period of time where you're either not able to get reconstruction, or maybe you don't want to get reconstruction. So the person that founded Knitted Knockers, the organization, which I will link down below, they have so many resources on the website, whether you're looking to get some of these, or you're looking to make some for yourself or for others, or to donate to Knitted Knockers. I mean, it is just an incredible organization. They're based out of Washington State. We did an interview with them in the Love and Stitches membership this month, and we are, as a membership, making knockers to donate. But you can definitely do this on your own, and even you can find on the knittedknockers.org website places to take your knockers to. But the founder, Barbara, said that when she went through breast cancer and had a mastectomy, that the prosthetics that the medical industry provides are very heavy, they're uncomfortable. I think they're like silicone, so they're like, you know, sweaty and icky, and that these, I know they don't look like much now, but I promise you when they're stuffed, they are way different. They are lightweight, they're soft. I mean, this Pima cotton is so soft, especially on sensitive skin and scarring and everything like that, that they look very natural and nice, and you can even swim in them, which is wild. I didn't even think about that. So I know this is probably something that is a touching, like, may affect you in some way, just like even hearing me talk about the knockers, however cancer or breast cancer has affected you or your loved ones in your life. But I think that this is just such a cool thing that Literally nobody else can provide, like the medical industry doesn't provide these. It's through Knitted Knockers and through knitters. Oh, I'm sorry. I should say that even though it's called Knitted Knockers, there is crochet patterns on the website too. So you can definitely crochet knockers. But through the yarn industry, knitters and crocheters, like we're the ones supporting this and providing this to people all across the world, and they are all across the world. So a very cool thing. This is not my first time making knitted knockers. In I think it was 2016. I made like 8 pairs or something. There used to be like a Ravel Olympics kind of thing. I mean, maybe it's still going on, but I remember it was like 2016, I think, because it was Rio. I wanted to do 1 knocker per day. That was my Olympics goal. And so I made a whole bunch of them. And my local yarn store in Brentwood, Tennessee, they were collecting them at the time. I think they still are. So this has been a cool thing to do because it's a small project. It is something that is meaningful in many, many ways, and it makes me feel good that I get to help out. And so that's been really, really cool. So the details on this, there's several different knitting patterns. You can actually start here. This is the back of it. So like the part that would be against the skin, which is always left open because when they're stuffed, and let's say I'm a recipient of these, they're left open so that if you need to add more stuffing or take away some stuffing to customize the fit, it is possible to do so. So this is the back. So I actually started mine here in the back. I think it starts with 15 stitches. You increase out, right? And then you do some purl rounds, and then you decrease here in the front. This part is a little bit more like dimensional. And then once it's stuffed, it's a lot more rounded. You can also start here at the tip, and then work increases and then work down. All the patterns are on the knittedknockers.org with videos. If you are crocheting, I don't know which side it starts with, but I've heard the crocheters say that actually it's a little bit easier to crochet them than it is to knit them, only because when you're knitting them, it's a little fiddly to get started. You can knit them on double pointed needles, magic loop, 2 circular needles. Again, all the patterns and videos are on knittedknockers.org. Along with the specific yarns that are required to donate them. So if you're making them on your own, you can use whatever is comfortable for you, but they've done a ton of research and testing and have determined like 30 or 40 yarns. I mean, it's a lot of choices. You can get yarns anywhere from a yarn store like I did to maybe a big box store or at Walmart or anything like that. There is a yarn that you can find. Again, I use Cascade Ultra Pima. Okay, so I knit these last week. They're obviously not a pair. I'm gonna make a second in this color and a second in this color, and then those will be the pairs. So the size that I am creating is a size C. I'm following directions for the size C. However, I'm getting kind of like a gauge that's a little bit smaller. So that's why I was aiming for a size B. They said that they need sizes B, C, and D the most. So I was looking for a B, and then I was like, wait, my gauge is a little small, so let me do a size C, and that way it will fit somebody. They measure them once they are stuffed, and there's measurements and directions and everything on the site. So of course, I always like to like do things differently, and I made a bunch of these. Oh, sorry. Okay, I like to do things differently, and I made a bunch of these in the past, so I'm doing 2 new things this time. One, I'm starting at the back, which I hadn't done before. I think they're called bottom up, instead of starting here. And the other thing I'm doing is knitting them 2 at a time. I can't say that this is the most, like, the easiest thing to do, and I definitely don't think it's faster than knitting them one at a time. It's just different, and they're both getting done at the same time. So my super long flexible needle that I got when I was knitting the nurtured sweater and wanted to do sleeves 2 at a time, that swivels. I love having that swivel, so nice. Plus this is way more flexible than my Knit Picks interchangeable set. So I've cast on 2 at a time, and I had to look up the video on how to do it again, but I got it going. So this is the second of each in the chocolate and the buff. And yeah, why not make things a little bit different, you know, spice things up. And I didn't weigh these yet, but these, I think if you buy 1 skein of Ultra Pima, you could probably make 2 pairs because I haven't gone through a lot. So I don't know exactly how many I'm gonna make yet. I'm just gonna keep making throughout November, see where I end up, and then stuff and donate these. So yeah, those are my knitted knockers and something that I spent a lot of time on last week rather than knitting my sweater. Okay, what's next? I think one of my projects is in my backpack, so I will get that in just a second. Let's talk about this one instead. Okay. So I have been working on Kent's Musselburgh hat, and look at that. I actually got a ton of knitting done. I've switched it over to some Christmassy, like holiday themed stitch markers. I want to say this one is from Simply Serving, but I've had it for a little while, so I can't quite remember, but I've gotten several inches done. So this is the Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague, which I have now made so many of them. Try to straighten that out. And I have changed things slightly by doing 1x1 ribbing. So if you're going to do this, I like doing the ribbing on the increase side of things. I always keep the first 2 stitches in knit, and then the increase still as a knit increase, but on the following row, you just start incorporating that 1x1 ribbing as you add new stitches, but always keeping the first and last 2 stitches in a section as a knit stitch. So you can like see that. There's 4 stitches in a row that are knit stitches because the markers go in between. And then once you're done doing all the increases, you then transfer over to 1x1 ribbing. Just keep an eye on things, because what that does for the number of stitches that I'm doing is I end up starting the round with a purl, which is not a problem. Just make sure like when you start that first round that has all ribbing, you're aware of where your first like knits and purl stitches are and everything lines up. It's not hard to do, I promise. So I am almost at the point where I am going to switch colors and switch over to stockinette stitch. And when I do that, I'm going to be switching to helical knitting. So a lot has gone on, a lot of mental work has gone into these projects. So I felt like because I didn't start my sweater this week that I had almost like failed a little bit, because I really wanted to start that. But looking at all the things that I did do, you know, that's really not, it really wasn't a fail. So what am I looking for? Oh, you know what I'm looking for? This is so ridiculous. I'm looking for my hat that was finished, but actually that hat is right here. It is no longer a finished hat. So the Musselburgh hat is this long oblong shape that gets folded up inside itself. So what I'm doing here is creating a solid green ribbed side, and then I will create a stockinette stitch variegated side. And I've split the skein in half so that I can work from the inside of one skein and the outside of the other. Really, it's like the inside of the skein and then the opposite end of that skein is here. And I wound it up into a ball this time because rather than pulling from the outside of a cake, it was easier for me to pull from a ball. So this is all prepped and ready for the second half of this hat. So you may be wondering, why did I pull out this hat? So a few reasons. If you remember, I showed it last week, I believe. But I needed like 5 more rounds to make this long enough for Kent. So he tried it on and it was like just his little earlobes were sticking out and he really wanted it longer. So I had to think like, okay, my hat, I know there's like really no difference. They're also connected right now, I'll explain that too. But my hat, the one on Magic Loop, that's how I'm remembering, it did not turn out exactly how I wanted it to. I made it so that it was fitted and it had no roll up. So it was completely fitted to my head, no roll up. And then I didn't like the way that the variegated yarn spiraled. And so I figured at some point I was gonna go rip that back out, but I wanted to knit Kent's hat first, split the skein and do helical knitting to see if that would change the way that the variegated yarn pulled. And then I would go back and knit my hat. Well, this, I don't know if you can tell, it's all like wrinkly. This I pulled out last night. There you go, now you can see it, from my hat because I needed more of that solid green. And this is all of the solid green that I have left. This is a yarn that was hand dyed, custom dyed for me from Rain's Obsessive Stitchery. And it's not possible for me to get any more of it. So I'm working with what I have. So I thought, you know what? I really am gonna rip out my hat anyway. And I'm gonna make my hat, I think, at least this is the plan right now, I'm gonna make it so that it's a little bit slouchy. And since I don't have any more solid green, the only way for me to do this is to knit more than half the hat in this color. So I think what I'm gonna do is make more than half the hat in this color, like starting, I'll do some rib in this color and then maybe switch over to just stockinette. So when it folds up, it will fold up, I think this will work, it will fold up with this color no matter whether the solid green side is showing or this side is showing. This is probably very confusing, especially if you haven't knit a Musselburgh, and I promise you as things develop, I will share them with you. I'm really hoping that this works. Kent's hat, on the other hand, his hat has more stitches because his head is bigger, and it also needed to be a little longer, just not that much though. It wasn't that different from my head. It needed to be just a little longer to cover his ears. His hat will be fitted, it will not have a roll up, and he decided that he didn't want what I'm gonna try to do where like the variegated color folds up. He would rather it be completely solid green and rib on one side and then completely variegated and stockinette on the other side. So I just have a couple rows to go for him. And then I'm going to add this in and do helical knitting. And yeah, if you're following me on Instagram, you'll probably see it there first if this works, but I will report back next week. And then I'll probably just keep mine on hold on these needles until I'm finished with Kent's hat, and then I'll come back to it and rework it. So I said that, that these are connected. So here's everything that I pulled out from this hat. And by the way that I pulled everything out is I've got a picture of it. I just kind of like the technique I showed last week for picking up stitches when I cut my Alpenglow. I picked up stitches 6 rows down into this ribbing, and then I cut off the top of the hat and just threw away. I mean, it was like very, very small amounts of yarn. And then I just started to unwind and I wound up a ball of all the variegated color. And then I wound up a ball of all of this. But then I thought, you know what if I need like a little bit more yarn or just a touch more yarn? I'd rather not have this cut and then have to like pull back more rows. Why don't I just start working from this? And I think this is gonna pay off because I still have, I put in a marker, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, so like 3.5 rows so far. I need to do 6. And I've got this much yarn left. So on the chance that I need more green for Kent's hat, I'm still attached here and I can tink back a whole nother row to give myself more yarn without having to then cut and add new yarn. So I'm basically doing all of this to avoid an end. It's really not more work for me. It's just giving myself insurance that I haven't like detached the yarn completely and have a finite amount of yarn. Instead, I basically can use as much as I need. I feel like that was a lot. This is what I did last night, just like trying to figure this out. What am I doing? I don't know. I want to make these like look good. It's worth the time to like take it out and make them right and make them something that we're going to wear. They're going to be slightly different, but also the same because I think they'll be so cute if we're matching. And in a perfect world, I will have these finished by December, what is it? Like December 12th or something, I think. I don't know. That's not the right date. But mid-December, early mid-December, we are going to a Dallas Stars game, which is what the yarn is inspired by. So it'd be so cute if I have them all finished and done by then. Okay, that's enough of those hats and hitting myself in the head. I do have one more project to show you. I have grabbed my last project, which was in my purse, and a Musselburgh visual. And then also, he started to sneak into the frame. He's so cute. Okay, so you may be thinking, wow, how are you going to finish 2 Musselburgh hats in the next month? Well, I didn't think it was possible, except that this week I started another Musselburgh hat and knit a ton on it. What? On top of all the other things that I was doing. Now, I started this for the sole purpose of having a project that is ready for going to the movies, going to shows, going out and about, walking around knitting, which I'm not doing much of when it's cold outside because it's too cold for my hands, but just like having that easy go-to project. So I looked at my stash and I had this beautiful skein of Suburban Stitcher sock in the colorway Reunited, which was her color. Is it in here? See, I changed my routine and then everything, here it is. Everything is off. Suburban Stitcher in the colorway Reunited, which was her fall show colorway. I squirreled away a skein for myself and I was like, you know what? This is going to be the opportunity for me to work with it, because if it stays in here too long, it's going to get given away, because again, I want to eliminate my stash this year. I also have it in a ribbed crochet yarn cozy, which I love. Okay, so I started it and I knit on it during the movies. I also had like a doctor's appointment this week, so I brought it with me, and I took it this weekend on the train, and I just got so much of it done. So it kind of gives me the feeling that I can work on my Musselburgh hats if I'm actually working on them, and they will get done. Now, this one is not going to be the priority. It's going to stay in my project box until I need it for a purpose, like I need to have in the dark knitting. And the reason that this one works for in the dark knitting and that these guys won't is because for these ones, I'm going to be doing helical knitting and I will have 2 balls of yarn. And in the dark, I can't see when to change over to the next ball of yarn. Whereas this one is just going to have the single ball of yarn. It's going to be one color and it will be very simple for me. So you may not see this again for a little bit as I work mostly on these, but even this week, I know we have things coming up that I'm going to need in the dark knitting for. So like always, I always want to change things up a little bit. And so for this Musselburgh, I'm going to attempt a hat somewhat like this one. So this hat is the, I guess, the last Musselburgh that I finished. And the goal for this hat was to use up as much of a single skein of stock yarn as I could and have a fold up brim and a slouchy hat. Slouchy crown, I guess. When I first finished this, I wasn't a huge fan of this hat. It looked, I think it had to kind of like ease out a little bit, and now I love it. It's my favorite Musselburgh that I have made because of the fit, and of course the color rocks too. This is Circus Tonic, handmade in, I don't remember the color, but my project is in my Ravelry page. But I thought it looked funny because this, where it folds up, ends up being 4 layers of fabric, and it looked like too big, but now it looks great. So I want this. I want the slouch, like the little bit of extra, because I think when it's fitted to my head, it doesn't look right on me. It just looks funny. And then I love the fold up. But for this one, I want half of it to be rib. Okay, so imagine it's all rib. The fold up is rib. But then when you flip to the other side, you have stockinette, but also still rib. So what I need to figure out, and this is great, so especially if you haven't knit a Musselburgh hat, here's what the hat actually looks like. It is like a football, a big long piece of fabric that just folds up into itself. So I need to figure out, obviously more than half the hat will be ribbing, but if I want it to be like all rib with a rib fold up and then stockinette with a rib fold up, how much of that needs to be ribbing? My guess is like a lot, right? Because I need to have all this space in the middle where like the other side, I don't know. Because I have this one hat, what I'll be able to do is, let's put this back together here. Whenever you fold them into each other, you know, you try to match the crown. I find going back and forth, like flipping it one side, you know, kind of shaking it out, back to the other, gets it all into place there. So I need to put this on, you know, however I typically wear it. And then I need to find, like, I guess a point like somewhere in here and like mark it. We'll just do this pretend right now, just in case you're wanting to do a similar thing. So let's imagine that like all this is stockinette, right? To like probably here, because even if I have ribbing here on the inside, when this ribbing folds up, it will cover it. So I just want to have, like enough ribbing. I don't need it to be like exactly like the cutoff where it folds up. I want to give myself a little wiggle room. So let's say right here. And of course, when I'm actually going to do this, I will be probably a little more exact. Okay, so if I take this off and pull this out, that would look like from the marker and up, stockinette, from the marker and down would be all ribbing. And now I know you can't see the marker once I'm far away, but it's like a good, like almost 3/4 of the hat would be in rib in order to achieve that. So here's that marker down here. So I got a long way to go where I'm just ribbing, 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 and then I'll switch over to stockinette, and hopefully this hat will come out as I have imagined. I hope that kind of makes sense. I might leave this out for now and actually figure out the exact measurements, put them in my project page, and then that will be a point of reference. You know, definitely try it on your own head because things will be a little different for everyone. I have a pretty small head, but yeah, that's the plan. But that Musselburgh, it's just kind of hanging out until I really need it for, you know, specific situations where I'm knitting in the dark. We're gonna head straight into news today. So the newest video up here on my channel is my weekend vlog from New Jersey. This past weekend, I went to New Jersey to visit some friends and recorded a vlog on the train, all the food that we got. We went to a yarn store. So it's short and sweet and a great little vlog. So much fun, all kinds of music and everything. So here's a little sneak peek in case you haven't seen it, and I'll have the link down below. So make sure to go watch that video in case you missed it. And coming up, I am going to have a Q&A podcast. So it'll probably just be a segment of a future podcast because this is one of those months where we have 5 Thursdays, I think I was looking at that before. Maybe we have 5 Tuesdays. I might need to look back at it, but regardless, I'm gonna do a Q&A this month. So look for on Instagram, I'm at Knitty Natty, a question box at some point to go up in my stories, and then I will answer as many questions as I can here in a segment on the podcast, or if I get a lot of questions, maybe I'll have it as a separate episode. I just like to do this every once in a while because that helps me know like what things are you wondering, you need knitting help, or you have a question about something that I haven't talked about in a while that I just, because it's, you know, things that I talk about a lot, I think people might know it, but maybe you're a newer viewer and you need an answer to that question. So that's how I'm going to make sure I circle back around and get all of those things answered. The other thing coming up is I will be doing a video on my Advent plans. I'm holding off on that as long as I can on recording it because I want to see if my Advents come in. I haven't received any yet, but I do have several on the way. What's so funny is like a month ago I had 0 and now I have 3. Probably. So I'm gonna wait for those to come in. I do have an idea of what I'm going to be working on in this holiday season. It's going to be different than all the other years, so I will be sharing that in advance of Vlogmas to just kind of share my own ideas, and then I will probably share some patterns and things that I've seen around in case you're looking for ideas too. Okay, other than that, Sockmas is our big make-along that is coming up next. It starts on Friday, November 25th. Knit or crochet 1 pair of socks, within 3 weeks, so November 25th to December 16th, and we're kicking it off with a YouTube Live cast-on party, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on November 25th, the day after Thanksgiving. All the other information is going to be down in a link in the description box. And then the holiday bonus package. I talked a lot about that last week, everything that's included in there. It's 5 live events, plus a Discord, which is filling up, and we're doing so much chatting about socks and advent and everything, and it will only get more, I think the conversation will get even more and more involved as we get closer to December, but that is on sale now. So all the details on that will also be down below, and they are on sale through Sunday, November 27th at midnight. After that, I am closing it off. Nobody else will be able to join, as our first event is a interview with Sockmas sponsors on November 29th. So all the details on that also linked in the description box below. It feels like a lot has happened in the last week. We actually got out and did some stuff, which is exciting. So one of the things we did is Kent and I saw Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, the new Black Panther movie on Thursday. Kent is really, really into Marvel. I love Marvel as well. So we like to go see the movies like right when they come out, if we can. One of the benefits of, working your own schedule is that we can make that happen, which is really nice. So that's why I started the hat originally, and literally as the lights were going down, I was doing my last increase before I just got to go around and around and rib. So made it, worked on the hat, and it was a great movie. Not as good as the first Black Panther, but a very good movie. So definitely go see that. It's long, it's like almost 3 hours, so just prepare yourself. After that, I actually got to meet up with a knitting friend, my friend Heather. We went out to dinner, we got some ramen and chatted, and then we got some ice cream. I think it's like Van Leeuwen or something. I don't know how to say it, but I've seen them around the city and always wanted to try them. And that was a warmer day, not 30 something degrees like we are today. It was definitely warmer. So we got some ice cream. I got this vegan ice cream, which I guess is made out of oat milk, this one was, and it was pumpkin dark chocolate, or dark chocolate pumpkin pie, and it was so good. And we went and we walked to Rockefeller Center and watched the ice skaters. It was just very so, aside from the weather, so Christmassy and so much fun. Then over the weekend, I had such a great time. I went to my friends Amy and Ian and stayed with them. Kent stayed behind because it was such a quick trip. And we didn't want to have to board Toaster because that is just really expensive. He stayed behind and hung out with little Toaster, and I got to go for one night and see Amy and Ian. We knitted, we had some wine, we had food, and then the main purpose of me going was the following day, we went to the Mother Knitter in New Jersey. And again, that's all in a vlog, so you can see all the details of it. I recorded a lot that weekend. But our other friend, Brianna, who is the Little Wolf Knits, was doing a trunk show in Red Bank, New Jersey at the Mother Knitter. So we went there and we hung out for a few hours with Brianna, and we planned out some future sweater knitting with her yarn, and it was so fun. And I got video of the whole store and everything. It was great. And then I came back home Saturday night. It was really nice. Oh, and while I was there, I had my first New Jersey diner experience. If you are, I don't know why you would know this, honestly. Maybe this is a Northeast thing. I had no idea living in Texas, but apparently New Jersey is known for their diners. And I don't know, you'd have to talk to somebody from New Jersey, but I've heard that, the real diners are the ones that are open 24 hours and you can get a million different things off the menu. But we did breakfast there and it was very, very good and so affordable. The diners in New York, I guess you have to know the right ones to go to, but the ones around us are too touristy and very expensive and not that good. They're okay, but too expensive. So I really enjoyed that. And then also we decorated for Christmas, finally. We had brought our Christmas decorations over last weekend when we put away our Halloween decorations, but it was so warm. I mean, it was 70s and almost 80 degrees. It just didn't feel like the mood to put up Christmas decorations, but on Sunday it was a little bit chillier, and so Kent kind of took the lead on that because I was pretty tired after being out all like Saturday. And so he was like, he just started decorating, and I pitched in a little bit. I put together most of the tree, but other than that, Kent did a lot of it. So we put our Christmas decorations up. We don't have a ton, but we do have a little 7-foot tree and a Christmas village and some other decorations. And then Kent also did something really cool with our wall lights and our Alexa and everything. He made it so that we can say something like, it's Christmas time, and all the lights turn red and green in our house, and it plays Christmas music, and it's just really, really cute. So we're just about there on the way to be like in the Christmas spirits. Not fully, but mostly. Okay, watching, listening, and reading. I finished, gosh, I think I finished this in 1 week, The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I loved this whole series. It was a trilogy starting with the Inheritance Games, and I think there's actually another book. I need to look into this more, but I was like, I have to force myself to read something else for a little bit, or else I will, like, you know when you're reading a series and you're just used to one author and like nothing else is going to be good enough. So I kind of try to split things up so that I'm not always just in one genre. So I'm reading, I'm going to go back and look into that other book by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, but currently I am reading, I just started, The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee. In our Love and Stitches membership, we have a book club, and this was the book for November, or is the book for November. So I'm going to do my best to read it before we meet later in the month, but it is good so far. It's a historical fiction book set in like the late 1800s, so it's definitely different and interesting. It's not like Bridgerton. Not like that, but it is very interesting, and it's also set in Atlanta, so an area that I'm very familiar with, so it's kind of cool and interesting to see all of that. Okay, weekly wins. I see here that I actually didn't take the time to write something down, so let me think. Weekly wins this week. You know what? There's a small one that I'm actually really proud of us for, and that is that after we decorated for Christmas, we immediately took our empty like Christmas tub, plus the suitcase that I'd used over the weekend to travel to New Jersey, and we took it over to our storage unit. Why is this a big deal? Well, for Halloween, after we decorated for Halloween, the empty tub sat for 2 months in our apartment. We never took it back to the storage unit until we filled it back up after undecorating, and then went and got Christmas stuff. It happens and it's fine, but I just have to say it feels so good to have that corner of our apartment clear and empty. It feels so cheery and cozy in our living room space now with all the holiday decorations, and just that, and like having a sense of calm, because I know that this is the time of year where things start to feel really stressful because we want them to feel so calm and good. And so when real life continues to go on, despite the holidays, it can create some tension, especially, I think it does for me. I don't know if it does for other people, but just like still feeling that sense of calm, or creating that sense of calm, and knowing that like parts of the day can be calm and joyful and parts of it aren't, and that doesn't mean that you've ruined the holidays or that anything is wrong. This is completely normal. I think that in itself too is just a weekly win. All right, y'all, that's everything for this episode. Look out for a Q&A box later on Instagram. That will be either in this next week's episode or later, because I think we've got 2 more for the month. I need to look back on my notes. Maybe it will be next week. I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.